Russia's FSB security service has uncovered a spy network of the Finnish intelligence agency aimed at interfering in Russia's internal affairs. The network included Finnish agents and recruited Russian nationals as well. The spies closely monitored the staff of the Russian embassy in Helsinki and the places they frequented. RT correspondent Marina Kosareva has all the details.
It's only recently that Finland lost its neutrality and friendly diplomatic relations with Moscow. But as it turns out, it was never really that friendly to begin with. According to the FSB, it's been trying to interfere in Russia's internal affairs for quite some time, which is an interesting development, considering that Finland shares a huge border with Russia at over 1,000 kilometers, with about 10 checkpoints, which was fine for decades as they've enjoyed a great relationship. But things have changed, it seems, as Finland has become increasingly anti-Russian and shocked everyone this spring when it decided to join NATO.
Fears of becoming Russia's next target pushed Finland to seek membership to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, more commonly known as NATO.
Ukraine spent years trying to get what Finland and Sweden seem to be vying for now: NATO membership to protect itself in a case of Russian incursions.
It also shows you how much fear was created in Finland as well by virtue of that very, very long border with Russia. They saw what was happening in Ukraine, remembering just not long before Russia invaded Ukraine.
For Russians, this accusation or fear-mongering is ludicrous, considering Finland wouldn't even be sovereign today had it not been for Vladimir Lenin, who formally recognized its independence in 1917. It was part of Sweden for hundreds of years before becoming part of the Russian Empire. And under Russian rule, it was the Grand Duchy of Finland, with its own laws, currency, police, customs, and culture. After Lenin agreed to let them go their own way, a civil war followed, where Germany and the Soviet Union got involved. But finally, in 1948, Finland and the USSR signed an agreement of friendship, cooperation, and mutual assistance, promising to defend each other against external threats. A promise Helsinki kept throughout the Cold War. For decades, trade relations between Finland and Russia had been doing very well. In fact, in the year leading up to the Ukraine conflict, Russia exported nearly $9 billion in goods to Finland, while importing under half of that amount from its northern neighbor. Helsinki also relied on Russia for power supplies and most of its gas needs. The military operation began and it all stopped. The Finnish side has unilaterally curtailed all joint cross-border cooperation programs, as well as the landmark joint project to build a nuclear power plant in Finland. It also pressured its companies to exit the Russian market. Out of about 900 Finnish companies specializing in construction, timber, processing, food industry, and industrial production, only about 150 have reportedly stayed in Russia. And even they don't advertise their activities, fearing European sanctions. So much for neutrality. But that's what you get when you're part of the EU, having to follow someone else's policies, sometimes at your own detriment.
As regards sanctions, not a single Finnish company is doing business in Russia anymore. We are one of the few countries who did this. Regrettably, this did not prove to be an effective tool against Russia. The West believed sanctions would result in the collapse of the Russian economy. There were those who believed this would happen within 6 months. This was a miscalculation. The sanctions had an impact, but not on the scale we imagined.
Finland relies totally on Russian trade. There is natural neighborly relation between Russian and Finnish standing for hundreds of years. Finland has learned to cope with the Russians and Russians has learned to cope with Finnish in very difficult times as well. Finland has joined a very good position for many, many reasons, and these past 2 years has been just a catastrophe. Finland is in a very deep depression. The economy is absolutely 100% in minus. We can say that Finland is heading to bankruptcy because losing the Russian markets and Russian trade and all the benefits what the Russia could offer for Finnish markets. So situation is very grim, very dim, and very unfortunate.
Finland is now harboring over 1,000 Russians who fled the country, including members of the opposition. And it has also implemented severe travel restrictions on Russian tourists, with their prime minister stating that it is not right that while Russia is waging an aggressive, brutal war of aggression in Europe, Russians can live a normal life, travel in Europe, be tourists. Those were her words.
An anti-Russia policy is being pursued by the Finnish authorities in a move to dismantle a relationship of mutually beneficial cooperation between Russia and Finland that has been built over decades, to sever diverse trade, economic and interregional ties, and direct contacts between people.
The situation only got worse this summer as Helsinki expelled 9 Russian diplomats from the country, accusing them of spying. And then Russia did the same with 9 Finnish diplomats. The Finnish president then cried foul, saying that it's a harsh and asymmetrical response, and announced that they would close the Russian consulate in Turku. Russia followed suit with the Finnish consulate in St. Petersburg. But unlike Finland, Russia has proof that not only has the Finnish Security Intelligence Service, aka SUPO, been actively trying to recruit Russian citizens and allowing Western agents to do the same, but their officials have been trying to gauge how big the opposition is in Russia. According to Russia's Federal Security Service, the Finns have set up ears in various establishments surrounding the Russian embassy in Helsinki.
The Russian security service has established that the Finnish security police called SUPO is closely monitoring a majority of the employees at the Russian Federation embassy and representative offices in Helsinki. SUPO has resorted to open external surveillance as well as an agency presence at their professional and recreational activities. Everyone knows that in addition to carrying out their official duties in their host countries, these official representatives, like all people, go to the hairdressers as well as pharmacies, shops and workshops. SUPO is actively monitoring these places, which diplomatic and support staff visit. They then proceed to recruit the Russian-speaking staff who work there. These include hair salons, such as My Color, where a Russian-speaking Finnish hairdresser called Lana works, and Echo, where hairdresser Yelena Krainova works. These employees hand over all the information gathered on Russian embassy personnel to SUPO.
These 3 agents from the Finnish Security Intelligence Service have been singled out for recruiting Russian citizens. This one right here, for example, visited Russia 26 times since 1996. Only 4 of those trips were through diplomatic channels. His mission? To gather information about supposed Russian activities against Finland and to extract information about Russian law enforcement employees. Now, these are just some of the Russian citizens that they are said to have recruited. Well, this man right here, codename Ollie, he's the director of a travel firm in Helsinki, which offers free services to Russian diplomats. And he was also the director of a Russian state company dealing with property management in Finland for 2 years. In 2014, he was questioned at the Russian embassy in Helsinki in connection to the illegal expropriation of real estate there. He hasn't traveled to Russia since, but he has apparently been passing lots of information about various Russian citizens, diplomats, and criminals. And he was passing the information to this man right here, Mr. Hakala, who has been retired since 2015, but maintained his Russian contacts. Hakala would then pass this intel to the active agents from the Finnish Security Intelligence Service. And it was thanks to Ollie's info that the Finns managed to recruit another man. That man is Alexander Ignatiev. He is the head of a travel company in Moscow specializing in tours in Scandinavia, and he also heads a Russian visa center in Helsinki, also offering free services to Russian diplomats. And he is the one who actually helped Timo Valtonen right here obtain a Russian visa on numerous occasions. Quite a transformation for a guy who served a sentence in Russia in the 90s for drug crimes. Well, recently, he was charged with the organization of illegal migration. And apparently, this is exactly the kind of info the Finns needed to recruit him. They helped him with his visas, and he returned the favor and then some. The Finns were interested in Russian embassy staff members and any personnel changes, the reaction and opinions of diplomats on the negotiations of senior officials, as well as any possible ways to circumvent the Russian ban on foreigners buying real estate in the border zone.
I just had an interest in the work they do on migrants. They say we have special people responsible for this area, and we have migrants in this environment. We immediately appoint our own people who come to us and report everything. And since migrants are probably reluctant to leave Finland, they're quite loyal in principle.
Moving on to this man right here, codename Veo, a former Russian diplomat who turned into a dodgy businessman, borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars from Russian citizens and not paying them back. He lost court cases in Russia and in Finland, but opted to stay there, far away from his victims. He declared bankruptcy, but is still supposed to repay one of his victims there. So Finnish authorities apparently control his bank account. Maybe that's why he decided to help them out by providing their agents with information regarding Russia's foreign and domestic policy issues, Russian institutions in Finland, their employees, and their psychological, professional, and financial matters. A similar story with this man right here, codenamed Pornokopy or Kiosti. He was the official representative of the Republic of Tatarstan in the trade representation of the Russian Federation in Finland for 16 years. He retired to Cyprus but continues to travel there and inform the Finnish intelligence services of all available info regarding Russian citizens living or traveling to Finland, especially Russian-speaking Muslims. Well, these are just some of the names that have been released so far, but we are told that there are many more. Now, 2 that we know of were charged with treason last year, and they are currently behind bars. Well, this man right here, codename Veikko, he is the one who originally went to Finland for a lengthy business trip as an employee of the National Trade Representative Office in Helsinki. When he returned to Russia in 1992, he quit and moved to Finland, which is when he started working for the Finns, apparently. He later married a local woman, started a business, and quickly got in trouble as local police suspected him of money laundering. After spending a year behind bars, it seems his buddies from the intelligence service got him out. Interesting fact, his wife was apparently a translator for Supo and was present for various recruiting conversations with Russians. Well, Alan over here, he was also recruited while on a business trip by Hakala, by the way, who was also the one receiving the info from Veikko. The info related to Russian diplomats, civil servants, and businessmen. In return, he got a Finnish passport, apparently. So these 2 are now in custody along with this man right here, though his story is slightly different. While in Finland, he was cooperating with the Swedish Military Intelligence and Security Service. Yes, foreign agents are allowed to roam free in Finland, it seems. And this is another man who switched sides while working on behalf of the Russian government in Finland. In 2003, he decided to flee to the US, where he is now said to be working for the CIA. And this lady right here is an MI6 agent, according to the FSB, and she tried to recruit another Russian diplomat.
The Federal Security Service of the Russian Federation has records of repeated attempts made by representatives of various secret service agencies of NATO countries to establish contact with Russian citizens. For example, in 2022, Catherine Evans, the first secretary of the political department of the British Embassy in Helsinki, and a staff member of MI6 met a Russian citizen who at the time was an employee of the Russian trade representation. Afterwards, she kept stalking him incessantly and following him around in her corporate vehicle.
I met her accidentally at the spa. It was winter and it was snowing. Not sure if I was given the spa certificate as a present or bought it myself, but I went there. I ran into her in the changing room. Assuming that she was smarter than me and knew who I was, she decided to wait for me in the common area. I arrived in my diplomatic car and parked it in the designated area. She asked me where I was from. I replied calmly, I'm from Russia. I asked her where she was from. She said, I'm from Britain, and then told me that she was a diplomat here. She said that her husband was also here, working remotely. The next time we met was at a place where we leave our pets. This was the second time, just a few weeks after the start of the special operation. I also felt that this was strange. I was driving down the street and there was an SUV with an open truck and she was standing by it and I saw her dog and a man there. I assumed it was her husband. I looked at her and then away, and calmly drove on. I then saw from the rear view mirror that there was a commotion. The husband and the dog immediately flew into the car and started following me. At that point, I became worried. I hoped that they were not following me. I turned at the traffic light. The car turned after me. I came to pick my dog. I parked, got out of the car. She said, "Hi, how are you? Shall we have a coffee?" I answered, "We will at some point," and we went our separate ways. I got even more scared because she was British and she knew too much about me. I had applied for visas in the past, so they have all my credit card details.
And as if that wasn't enough, the Finns have also been busy here on Russian soil, trying to gather information about Russia's internal affairs. September 21st, 2022, the Consul General of the Finnish Embassy in St. Petersburg holds an unofficial meeting with deputies of the Legislative Assembly of St. Petersburg from the Yabloko Party, constantly asking them how strong the opposition is to Vladimir Putin's partial mobilization and whether it has potential to grow.
Будет больше такие, скажем, mielenilmauksia, kuten mitä Alla Pugacheva yritti. Что я могу передать тоже по поводу мобильности или вот этот визумности? Что я могу передать про мобильность и про визы? Как вы видите ситуацию? Потому что мы знаем, что в России есть 40 миллионов человек и 20 миллионов, может быть, у которых есть вот этот паспорт. Это может быть деликатный вопрос тоже, но если говорить по поводу политических вангеista tai tutkinnoista, следствия, которые политический мотив.
Then they all agree that it's very important to continue their partnership in spite of the sanctions and the foreign agent law, which demands transparency when foreign money is pouring into Russian organizations.
Я думаю, что есть какие-то, собственно, вопросы, вопросительные знаки, есть пожелание. Есть пожелание сохранять настрой на взаимодействие, на развитие, на сохранение сотрудничества с некоммерческими организациями, даже несмотря на сложные российские законодательства. Просто нужно быть более аккуратным и внимательным при формировании этого сотрудничества, чтобы партнеров российских не могли упрекнуть в том, что они получают деньги и выполняют какие-то иностранные задания.
Sitten juurikin Suomessa ja meilläkin on meidän valtiojohto ja itse asiassa ulkoministerillekin kerroin, että olemme tapaamassa. Niin siis se, että keskustelin myös juuri ulkoministerin kanssa, joka oli täällä joku aika sitten, reilu vuosi sitten.
All this goes to show that even though Finland technically lost its neutrality this year, it was actually never really that neutral and far more aligned with the West, even allowing their agents to work against Russia on their soil. So it's hardly surprising that they joined NATO in a heartbeat and started spewing out conspiracy theories about Russia planning to invade. Another case of the pot calling the kettle black.